Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ask the CEO with Avrohom. Today, I'd like to introduce you to a very special guest. He's the founder and CEO of cliexa, a company that leverages artificial intelligence via their suite of products to enable providers to collect clinical metrics and compliance data for quality reporting electronically, saving time and resources over the standard paper process. As part of this discussion, we will share how their partnership with Microsoft, their use of Azure, and the Azure Marketplace have empowered them to scale and grow their business. It's my pleasure to welcome Mehmet Kazgan. Welcome, Mehmet.
Thanks, Avrohom. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining. Mehmet, I'm really excited speaking to you today. Your company does a lot of exciting things, and artificial intelligence is very prevalent nowadays, especially in healthcare. And as you know, providers are working on converting their data to digital format in order to leverage the benefits of the latest innovations in technology. What are the challenges healthcare providers face when trying to go digital?
Great question, Avrohom. I think one of the biggest challenges that providers are facing is keeping up with the administrative challenges. So collecting information from the patients that applies for claims, for billing, but more importantly, to document clinically what's happening with the patient. As data becomes more important every day, not only for their clinical tracking, it also is important for billing for their purposes. So in that flow, they have to keep up with documentation. They have to document everything that they hear from the patients, also for the treatment process as well. So that's number one challenge that we see all the time. I think the second one, along with it, is to kind of keep up with that data. What do you do with it? How are you handling that data that applies to the treatment across time? And then with the flow of the patients going in and out, personalizing the medicine and treatment for patients is becoming more problematic every day.
Now, I know cliexa is doing a lot of exciting things in this field. How is cliexa helping healthcare providers through its artificial intelligence-based solution set?
Great question again. So I think the way to explain how we actually get into that space, Avrohom, is we collect the necessary information and then kind of like put in a package for the doctors as they want to see it. So in today's norm, to be compliant and document and follow up with the patient, they collect the data, but data is not actually followed up in the manner through that process. So for artificial intelligence, as we all know, you need to have a valid data set that you can apply and have the system learn from it so you can predict things for the doctors. The way that we do it and we help doctors is tell us how actually you define a risk or any kind of attribute that flags anything that is important for the patients through intake process. So not only we collect the data that will feed into their own risk methodology, and it can differ from one clinic to another, we actually learn from how their thinking process is, and then we apply that to the intake process with clinical data, and the system starts learning along with how the doctors think and starts predicting that information, the risk, and kind of generating reports in the norms of how the doctors will think. So we're kind of increasing the efficiency, actually saving a lot of time for patients to tell their background, what happened with them in between visits. And that actually is a great outcome that we already actually show that we save at least 10 minutes per patient per visit during their doctor visits.
I could definitely see a lot of value in a service like this. Just one thing I'm curious about, what is so innovative about what cliexa does? Aren't there so many companies out there that collect data?
Absolutely. And again, that's actually one of the most important things that I want to emphasize today. And you're right, there are a lot of applications doing data collection, providing, and they're great applications at the same time. So I think the approach that we're taking is we're providing a platform instead of a product. So the platform actually is enabling clinicians to collect the information in their own terms. That's number one. But the one that we actually implement across time is if you define a risk for a patient during that visit, during that time, that risk is going to be changing during the treatment time. Let's say if you put a patient on a 9-month treatment plan, the risk we identify or predict today is going to be high, and next month it's going to be medium. The month after it's going to be low. If you look at that tracking methodology, I want to know as a clinician, how does that affect in a different demographics and set of patients, and how my actual treatment methods, either it's actually medication or it's actually even coping skills training for patients to cope up with their chronic condition, will change across time. So what cliexa does is collect all the data from the patients, marry that data with their medication adherence, their family history, background, their clinical data they provided that day. We get that risk, and as the doctor puts the patient into a treatment model, we're actually telling our AI platform to learn that type of treatment across time. And that's kind of like the real innovation we provide to the clinicians as we process that information for them to make more informed decisions across time.
Now, can this data also be used in order to query symptoms that other patients are having?
Absolutely. That's kind of like where we're trying to get at with that. So not only other patients, but also other conditions at the same time. So you just had a great point with that. We want to enable the system to learn how basically symptoms trigger certain things for doctors, allocating other things. Absolutely, you can apply for other patients with the similar demographics, similar family history, similar medication history, and you can actually say, well, across the board, we have seen that this type of demographics and patients actually have been showing this type of symptoms, and you can predict this for other patients as well. And as you actually input more data, system will learn faster and process it better, and you're going to be more accurate.
Wow, let's not even talk about the big killers like cancer or today, what's trending with coronavirus and things like that. Let's just talk about quality of life. There are millions of people here in the United States and globally that suffer from all sorts of conditions like chronic fatigue or some other conditions that we don't even know the names of, and nobody has a cure. And we're already a quarter of the way through the 21st century. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited listening to you talk about this, because what I'm hearing is that we actually are now coming up with a way where we can cross-reference symptoms and demographics and other factors that we might not even know about in order to help all these people.
You're right. And like you said, there's a big leap also in healthcare and innovation, how we collect the data too. I think what we're trying to, like we all try to do, is solve a problem. Like you mentioned, how can we actually manage the conditions? The treatments are going to take time, like you mentioned with cancer and other issues that we're having every day. I think the issue comes from this. The healthcare should evolve as the bacteria and viruses are evolving. And as you can see, we don't have a static data set. As people change, new medications come up, like your social determinants are changing every day. So the allergies that you didn't have like 5 years ago because of your environment or something that you're taking, even your nutrition will affect. So there are a lot of moving parts in the system. So you need to keep up with that system to kind of come up with better models to keep up with it. So technology is actually here and feature is here. I think we're trying to evenly distribute it all the time to figure out how can we catch up with those changes in evolution. In viruses, you just mentioned coronaviruses. Now it's just a huge deal right now. We have been following it. They're canceling conferences. People are dying, and there are a lot of quarantines going on. Treatments are going to follow, but if we have a good path to collect enough information to actually start evolving as aligned as those bacteria and viruses are evolving, I think we're going to be closer to the treatment.
Yeah, and I think not only treatments, but also dangers. Every treatment has side effects and things that, if it's not done correctly, can cause harm. And that's what AI can help with as well. Sort of like think ahead, 3 steps ahead. What is this going to do?
And you're right. And one of the things you mentioned up front is this quality of life, right? So is it like, what does that mean for the patient? I feel okay. That okay is not okay for you, but it might be okay for me. It's actually worse for other people. So standard, kind of put a standard around people it's going to be hard. But AI can process all this together and come closer to it. And instead of asking the patients, what's your pain, what's your condition from 1 to 10, you can say how hard it is to lift a cup or a glass in the morning can trigger a lot of predictions for you by adding different data points in there. It's hard to believe, but it is actually showing results as we speak every day. We see a lot of AI products coming up every day, but going back to that, Avrohom, I think collecting enough information, focusing on the decision support engines that doctors and clinicians have their mindset going around, I think it will get us closer to provide a better quality of life. That's the mission we always kind of follow.
Going along those lines of quality of life, there's a strong emphasis nowadays on preventative care. And one of the most prevalent technologies that healthcare is starting to catch on to is the wearable technology. You know, we all have wearables, health tracker, you know, step trackers, sleep trackers, and all sorts of things. How can healthcare providers leverage wearables in order to provide that preventative care?
That's a great point. So we look at it as cliexa as a company that it's another kind of data bucket for us to provide the clinicians. So let's take specific examples, right? So if I am a rheumatologist, it is very important for me to see how the patient functions during the day with the injection so we can control the joint pain. That's one. I'm a cardiologist, I want to monitor the cholesterol levels and high blood pressure, as well as an endocrinologist will be monitoring a type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes patient. So all these connected devices are actually in the norm that we're using. But what we're trying to do is we have a system that we actually enable those through our platform, so patients actually just real-time connect to it. When you enable the doctor saying that, what do you really care, or what's the flag for you or a patient? If it's a rheumatologist looking for a patient walking X amount of meters or feet or miles per day, or if you have an Apple Watch that you want to see what your cardiac kind of condition by reading that, even it's not that accurate, some clinicians thing, or looking at the glucometer data day by day that flags certain things to communicate the patients before they come to the clinic again or end up in an emergency room. It is really crucial to get standard real-time data pushing through, because those are actually indicators for clinicians to look at it, right? So if you're seeing a patient with, you know, Apple just built the AFib kind of symptom monitoring with the pulses. It's still in the research. I think they're collecting real good data. If you collect Garmin, Fitbit activity data and align with it, apply to that to AI, I think it's huge for clinicians to see that data coming in, and they can predict with the help of AI how they can prevent conditions. Again, I'll give you one more example with that. Rheumatology is a joint pain that can be managed by non-biologics and biologics. Either it's in pill form or it's an injection. If you can control rheumatology issues up front with that early kind of detection, you can actually control that becoming a little bit serious, you know, in the later ages. How do you figure that out? Well, if you can tell AI the certain indicators showed us and then outcomes that this patient's in this type of demographics build that up across time, system can predict and start giving indicators to doctors to prevent it upfront.
As they say, an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure.
That's perfectly said. You're right.
Great, Mehmet. So your company's solution is up on the Azure Marketplace. How would a healthcare provider use your solution with Azure?
Great question again. So I think the biggest thing that we wanted to do with Microsoft being an Azure platform is enabling that platform directly from Azure Marketplace. So in the norm of how people are using Google, Apple, and other kind of platforms directly on their devices, we're enabling the cliexa platform through Azure Marketplace. If they're in Azure Cloud, or if they're not in Microsoft Azure Cloud, they can actually get into the Azure Cloud and enable cliexa truly from that system. So in a simple way, if you are a health system or a clinic that you're already kind of utilizing Microsoft Azure services in cloud, we will just onboard those clinics by connecting our system directly from that to their cloud within the same norm. So it's going to be a quick kind of transactional system to get them on board, which they call it Microsoft Transact. So we're really excited to, announce that we're actually ready to go with any Microsoft Azure customers that we can onboard them pretty quickly.
Great. And how can customers find out more about the cliexa solution set and procure it through the Azure Marketplace?
So we created a short URL form for it so that they can go to bit.ly/CLX-MFST1, which is CLX for cliexa-MFST, which is Microsoft-1 on Bitly. They can actually just land on our actual Azure Marketplace page, and they can get more information for onboarding there too.
Great. And I'll put that in the show note as a clickable link so people can just go right to it.
Thank you so much.
So Mehmet, how has partnering with Microsoft helped cliexa scale and grow your business?
I think one of the things that we get from Microsoft is kind of absolutely a setup for us to grow quickly on the Azure Marketplace. So as you know, as a clinical platform, there are a lot of variables like enabling security, enabling monitoring, enabling also integration with electronic medical record system. So using a platform like Microsoft in the market is going to be not only making us easier, but adding a lot of validity and credibility in there. So instead of coming and saying, we have our platform, we're happy to implement, how regulations and restrictions around patient data and security and so on and so forth, it gives a lot of credibility for us to onboard customers that way. And Microsoft, they already established in Azure Marketplace a lot of big health systems already onboarded. They've been getting bigger contracts on security, and that helps us to actually go start tapping into their network, enabling that. They already started announcing our platform in social media, and we have other kind of like moving forward announcements, kind of like co-developing PRs, press releases together. So it's going to add us more presence in the market as well as credibility. So it's a huge help for a company like us to grow and expand in the healthcare market.
Great. Now, how do people connect with you?
So they can connect through our website, cliexa.com, CLIEXA.com. There's a contact, but they can also see me on my Twitter. They can follow me on @MRKAZGAN. And also they can follow me in LinkedIn as well. If they can go to LinkedIn/Mehmet Kazgan, MEHMETKAZGAN. I'm over there as well. And then if they search cliexa and my name, they should end up seeing those social media links to get direct access.
Great. And I'll post that as well so people can look it up a lot easier. Mehmet, how can people find out more about Microsoft partnership opportunities for healthcare partners?
They can find more Microsoft opportunities, healthcare partnership opportunities at HealthcareIndExp@Microsoft.com. So again, HealthcareIndExp@Microsoft.com.
Great. Mehmet, do you have any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience?
I would like to tell people that I think to provide better quality of life to everyone, like in the world, I think we should find ways to collaborate and come up with like collaborative solutions together. We cannot do things alone. We should do it together. And if there's a way that instead of competing, collaborating together, we can go faster.
Love that. Mehmet, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom. I really enjoyed having you on the show.
Thank you so much, Avrohom, for having me. That was a pleasure.